All right. So, James, I'm super excited today that we actually get to do a full-on author website review workshop, as I
Yep.
framed it, for us to really be able to dive deep into why authors need a website. As a quick hook and as a quick about, James, why are author websites important? Like
So
what and
basically,
what you say.
author websites, they're important because they're essentially marketing material for your books, your services, and you as a brand.
Mhm,
So making sure that you have that kind of that platform that you can sit out there and promote who you are and what you can do is extremely important because you go to Amazon or you go to any of the other platforms that are out there where your books are going to be, you're going to be
mhm,
amongst millions. So this is
mhm,
specifically dedicated to you and what you're about. So that's what
mhm,
makes it really important for an author to ensure that as a part of their repertoire of building up their brand and
mhm,
gaining that kind of that audience and that community built around who they are as an author, having that
mhm,
website is a good place for them to be able to steer people to learn
mhm.
more about them.
Which I completely agree with that. Now, I know websites in general, I think it's generally agreed. Everyone's like, all right, everyone needs a website. Do you find that when authors have a website that they can send people to for their brand or their books or what they're working on, do you think it generally helps to build their brand build their brand up more or helps to increase book sales?
It really depends upon how you set up the website.
Okay.
So
So
you
based
can
on the
set
type
up
of
the
website.
website to be more brand specific. And
Mhm.
so essentially what you're doing is you're introducing yourself and you're letting people get to know you as an author.
Okay.
And then secondary being your books. But then you can also build a website that's specifically built around sales. And so
Okay.
your pages are not just really pages about you as an author or just about your book, but the pages are set up in a way that they become sales funnels. And so
Okay, that makes
that's
sense.
so there's where the difference is that depending upon what your focus is
Mhm.
on how you want your website, having it set up in those different ways will give a different impression on the user that comes to visit the website,
Okay.
and it will make the difference in between how what you get in terms of return on your investment on having
Mhm.
that website, whether it's building up a community around who
Mhm.
you are and your works, or whether it's built specifically as a sales machine for you to be able to get as many book sales as possible.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I want to welcome all of you to the live author website review workshop. I've invited James today over with WTC Creatives, where we're going to be diving deep into what makes a great author website. We're going to start off with by highlighting just some key concepts that all authors should look at or be looking for when they're thinking of oh, I need an author website. What do I do? What's important? So we'll be reviewing a couple key highlights, and then we're going to be diving deep into your author websites. So if you still want to submit your author website for a live review, and this is completely free, follow the submission link, which is located down in the YouTube description. I will also drop it down in the comments in just a second. So definitely submit your website, whether it's building up your author brand or to help you sell more books. James has been doing this for well over 20 years. The last time we did this stream back in June, I learned so much. I learned so much about website, about design, development, and all the things. So you're definitely going to be getting a lot of value today. And welcome to the Right Now community. I'm Kaufman, and I'm on a mission to help the unpublished writers of the world with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to write that book and get that readership. So come join the community because we're starting right now. All right, beautiful. And I just want to welcome all our friends. Rachel, glad to have you in here. Welcome, my friend. Another really awesome author. Rachel has been great, has also been on the podcast before with us. I hope your writing is coming along well, my friend. And Miss Marta, welcome. Glad to have you in here. Natalie, we're looking forward to seeing you. Hello, dears, or hello, dear. Glad to have you in here, Natalie. Thanks for joining us today. And let's see, we got Courtney, our favorite. Courtney, hopefully your storytelling is coming along. I know your birthday's coming up, and I know you're almost about to hit that word count. So I want to say with our YouTube subscriber count, we're like less than 20. So we're getting close. We're almost there till we get to 500. Hey, what's up, Soul? Everyone's favorite to chat Soul over with Soul's game studio. I want to say it was Eclipse Studios. Glad to have you in here, Soul. And welcome, my friends. All right, beautiful. So without further ado, let's get into it. So like I said, I've invited James over with WTC Creatives, and we're going to be diving into your author websites. I'll drop the link right now, and let's bring James back up onto the screen. Welcome, my friend.
Hey.
Like I was saying in the hook, I learned so much from you from our last website workshop back in June.
Well, I appreciate it.
Super cool.
I was more than happy to teach you as much as I could.
I can just tell, like, and this is the vibe I get when I feel like I'm like looking at a story and I'm doing the editing and looking for all the things. They come so naturally to me. I'm like, all right, these sentences shouldn't work like this. Syntax doesn't work like this. Characters don't work like this. And I could tell that you're the same way when you're looking at these websites. You're like, I could just tell it comes naturally to you, which is awesome. And I'm kind of curious, actually, James, before we even get to the website part, how did you get into the website development or the website design? Like, what was there an inspiration?
No. So essentially what ended up happening is that my parents owned a TV station back in my old hometown in Alabama, and they needed a website. And so I went through the process and learned HTML and JavaScript. I built out their website. And then after I did that, I started building websites for other small businesses there in town. And that's basically what it started off. It was just helping my parents out. And then
what age was the internet in? Like, what was this, like an early version when we're still in Web 1.0?
Yeah, like 1998.
Wow. So that's when we still have AOL Messenger. Yeah. And like that was like original YouTube with like Charlie bits my my finger and all those videos. And it was all about spam.
And MySpace.
The website. MySpace. Somebody said that Tom is on Facebook. I'm like, because everybody was friends with Tom from MySpace.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you've probably really seen the industry from website development, how it's evolved over time.
Yes. Yeah. It's changed a lot over the years. So it's gone, kind of pivoted away from just the straight coding, like doing HTML, PHP, JavaScript, CSS, to more of like using page builders that are more drag and drop. Even with some of the ones like when you're dealing with Wix or Squarespace or even WordPress, their native builders are essentially drag and drops. You're just pulling blocks in and you're kind of building things out from there, which makes it very, very easy and makes it extremely user-friendly. Where you end up falling off oftentimes is that because it's easy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right, because you've got to take into account design aesthetics, and you've got to take into account the user experience and the user interface when you're doing that. And so being able to kind of manipulate the web page in a way that's appealing and easy to navigate, those are kind of really big keys to ensuring that a person that comes to your website isn't immediately turned off and leaves, that they actually want to experience the website and get to know you and the things that you offer as a part of it. And so that's where those aesthetics and that user experience and the user interface plays a really big role in that process.
Okay. And I really like that. And I actually think this leads into my first main question. So before we get into the review itself, I was thinking for a lot of writers out there who might not have a website yet, or like every writer probably knows, like, yeah, I need to get a website for the brand at some point.
Yeah.
What do you have a couple of just like key tips for people who are maybe just starting out, might not yet have the finances to hire a professional, or maybe they do, and they're like, okay, well, what things should I know about having a successful author website?
So as far as the websites are concerned, if you're just starting out, and you don't have a lot of additional funds, using the Wixes and the Squarespaces, those are good
Like
beginner
good starting points.
alternatives.
Okay.
Yeah, so it just allows for you to be able to do that, and then you can build it yourself, you can maintain it yourself, and all of that. WordPress is a little bit more intensive, but there
Mm,
are a lot of YouTube tutorials out there that will teach you how to build an entire website on WordPress. So it's not
mhm.
completely
So it's
difficult
probably
for it to
more
do.
just like the time aspect of it, right? Of like it just takes
Yes.
time too.
Yeah. So,
Mm,
anything, I kind of think of like a website kind of like either having a pet or a child.
okay.
It's not something that you can just build and go, okay, well, I'm done, and be good with it. You've got to kind of take care of it. So you've got to make sure that it's updated with
Interesting.
security, and you've got to make sure that your links don't break, because if you link to an external website, if that website changes or anything, those links
Mhm.
can break, and thus you break your user experience because you've essentially
Mm,
messed up that whole navigation. So you want to make sure that you're on top of that. And with Wix and Squarespace, same with WordPress, any of them, or
mhm.
Duda, or even Shopify, if you want to go the whole
With like an
e-commerce route.
online storefront. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to go the whole e-com route, you could do Shopify, or you can do WooCommerce with
Okay.
WordPress, or Wix and Squarespace with some of their higher tiers. They have those shopping, essentially e-commerce stores that you can integrate in.
Okay. That makes
Um,
sense.
so you can do that, and you can kind of build up from there. Uh,
Hmm.
and so it's just with each of those, there's always the aspect of that when you put your website out there,
Hmm.
you are essentially opening yourself up to the entire world. And by
Mm,
doing that, you're also opening yourself up to a world of people who like to do bad things, and they use websites as a means to do that. And so websites get
mm.
hacked and they get rewritten and things get put on there.
Really
And so making sure that from a security
interesting.
perspective that you're
Mhm.
maintaining strong passwords, and you're maintaining security software that blocks um, errant
Would you say
login.
that the security is one of like the number one things that like new websites overlook?
Yes, it's one of the
Okay.
largest. They're the two things that are overlooked the most when you're talking about websites is
Mhm.
security, and that's
Okay.
your password, your admin password, as
Mhm.
well as security of the site itself. And
Okay.
then the second one that's important, other than security, is and it just left my mind.
It's only because it's like on the tip of your tongue. You probably said it
Yeah,
1,000 times.
yeah, but
Um,
it's very important to have. Oh, yeah, backups.
Backups. Okay.
Yes.
And
So
what does that mean for like a website backup? Is that like saving the information and
yeah,
like a
so
hard drive or something like that?
it's kind of like when you're doing your writing and stuff, what you
Mhm.
want to do is you want to save it off, and you save it on your computer, but you also want to save it off onto an external hard drive just in case your
Mm,
computer dies on you, you've got that backup copy. Well,
so
you
then
need to
is
do the
that for
same
a
thing.
website? Is that saving like the entire like that's like basically taking a snapshot of the entire front end of the
Yep.
website
It's a
in a single
snapshot and a
moment.
point of
So then it
time.
goes back to that time. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so
Interesting.
you can do it. Your hosting providers will provide backups,
Hmm.
but it's always a good idea to have a secondary backup, because
Hmm.
what a lot of people have run into is that when their account gets hacked, they're
Hmm.
able to hack into the server as well, and they can kill all the backups. So having an external
Interesting.
that's there,
Interesting.
it just it's kind of that extra level of security. It's one of those where when you put yourself out there, it reminds me of being like a celebrity. You kind of like
Hmm.
Jared is, right? A big
Hmm.
celebrity. The paparazzi and stuff are always around, so you always want to increase security so that you don't have the stalkers and stuff that
Yeah.
happen,
Okay.
things like that. So same thing with your website. You want to make sure
Mhm.
that you maintain that security, so you're protecting not only your website but your image, and you can get blacklisted. There's all kinds of things
Mhm.
that can happen to your website if it gets hacked by somebody. So it's
Yeah,
extremely important to be careful.
that totally makes sense. That's not something I would have thought about initially, but I think for like you said, two things overlooked is security and then backing up. I think that's
Yes.
absolutely phenomenal. And then I also want to bring up Tiara. By the way, welcome to the stream, my friend. I missed the beginning. Is Squarespace probably my best option for making a website?
I would say in terms of user easiness, Squarespace is a little bit more complicated than Wix is.
Okay.
But
I
both of
myself
them
have
are
used
fairly easy.
Squarespace. I've never used Wix before.
Yeah.
So you think Squarespace is a little more challenging, Wix is a little
Yeah.
easier?
From what I've experienced with dealing with Wix and Squarespace, Squarespace seems to be, well, I don't know. So Wix has kind of jumped up in their game a little bit, but back when I was messing around with them, Squarespace was a little bit more advanced in terms of the things that you could do. Whereas Wix was more basic. It's kind of like using the basic builder in WordPress. It's just drag and drop blocks, you make your changes, you throw the text in there and you're good to go. But doing anything in the background was a little bit more difficult, but they've kind of leveled up their game. So they're kind of on par with each other. It is a good option to start off with. There's tons of tutorials that are out there on YouTube, just like there are WordPress. The biggest things that you gotta keep in mind is that when you build on Squarespace or Wix, you're building on a proprietary system that is not compatible outside of that system. So when you're thinking websites, if you build this big, beautiful website on Wix, and if you one day you're like, I think I want to switch over to Squarespace, or, oh, you know what, I want to switch over to WordPress, it's nearly impossible.
They're
It can
not
be done,
interchangeable.
but you can't transfer your website over. So it's got to be rebuilt from scratch. And so you got to think in terms of like long term, do you want to deal with Wix, WordPress, Squarespace in that long term, or do you want to just build a basic website just to get your name out there? And then when the time comes, go with the idea that, hey, I'm going to build an entirely new website on this other platform. And you can copy and paste your same information, your content copy on your website. You can copy and paste that over easy. But as far as the layout and the design, they're fundamentally going to be different.
Awesome. So it sounds like Squarespace and Wix are both great for starting points, great for starting out, especially if you can invest some time into learning how to use the platforms. But then maybe once you get far enough along, you really need to invest in either the time to learn how to build a website from scratch, more complicated, but most people don't have that time. So then they need to hire a professional like yourself, which is something I would highly recommend. Absolutely. I taught myself like the beginner stuff, but I'm like, I know I won't have the time to do the more advanced logistics. And then it sounds like there's a lot of maintenance and upkeep that has to be done on the website, websites as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things that having nightly backups is a great idea. Going in and making sure, at least on a weekly basis, making sure that all of the plugins that you've put in there are up to date, because plugins fall out of line, or they find security breaches inside of their plugins. And so as a result of that, they've got to patch them. And so there's constantly updates going on, and some of them update a lot more than others. And so that's where you got to go into that whole process. And then of course you deal with the platforms too. They have updates. And like with anything, if they make an update to their platform, then everybody that does the plugins have to make updates to their plugins in order to make it compatible with the new version.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like I said, it's kind of like having a kid or a pet. You're constantly having to keep up and take care of it. Or you pay somebody to take care of it for you, like I do. And then that's just part of it. Is as authors, you have a lot on your plate because you've got so many different hats that you wear.
Ain't that the truth?
And having a web designer hat tossed on top of that big pack, that big pile of hats you've already got, really, it's like, do I have the time? If I take the time to do this, then I'm going to miss out on that. I'm missing copy.
Right. It's like, am I going to put on the editor hat? Am I going to put on the website? Am I going to put on the cover design artist, the marketing? So many things. I completely agree with you. And I wanted to bring up a great question here. Jessica. Welcome, my friend. I have a lot of the Adobe programs from school. One of them is the online portfolio. Would that pass for a temporary website until I can get one set up?
So if you're talking about online portfolio, I guess it really depends upon what it is that you're trying to promote. So
Mhm,
online portfolios are just that. They're portfolios. So they're
mhm,
specifically designed in a way that
mhm,
promotes artists,
mhm,
photographers, videographers, things like that. So if you're doing something similar to that, then yeah, portfolio websites are really good. Or if you have a business, like for me, as a web designer, my portfolio is the web pages and the websites that I build for clients.
mhm,
Um, so that's so you can use it. It's just that they're not designed for the specific purpose of like a standalone author that's working on their first novel.
okay,
You don't have enough content
mhm,
built around that in order to try and fill that in unless you build
mm,
out. And we'll as we're going through and looking at the different pages, we'll be able to kind of see and talk about a portfolio website
mhm,
and where that looks good, and it does aesthetically, it would look good, but
mhm,
functionally it makes the user that comes to your website question
mhm,
who you are and what you do.
mm,
Because if you're there and you're an author and that's what your primary thing is, and you've
mhm,
got a whole portfolio sitting on there of a bunch of different artwork and things like that,
mhm,
they start to question like, well, are they doing the artwork for those books,
mhm,
or are they, what exactly are they doing? So it does
mm.
raise questions from a user experience perspective, even though it may look pretty. But if
Interesting. So
it's
it's kind of
something
like
that you
seems like
want to do, yeah,
limited flexibility, so to
yeah.
speak.
But if it's something you want to do, I just go with the whole idea and mindset that if it's something that you want to do and you like the way it looks and the layout of it, then by all means do that, to get your name out there, because it's
Mhm,
extremely important for you to get your name out there.
mhm,
And so, in any way that you can do it, I say go for it. I would just make sure that when you're dealing with a type of website, a theme of a
mhm,
website, that theme matches what it is that you're trying to portray, in
mhm.
terms of who you are and what you're offering.
Awesome. James, thank you so much for answering that. I
Sure.
think with that being said, let's hop into the website reviews. I think now is
Sure.
a perfect time. So we have a number of submissions on here. We're going to do our very best to get to as many of you as possible. But we want to make sure that the websites we do hop into, that we give you the most incredible and valuable information. So that way you can go make the best website possible. All right. So we have reviewing your author websites. Once again, if you haven't signed up yet, the submission link is down posted in the comments and down in the YouTube description. So we're going to be starting first off with Natalie. So Natalie Locke, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
All right, Natalie. So we're starting straight up with your website. I saw you here earlier in the chat. Just say I. And once again, feel free to ask any questions along the way and we'll get started. And even if this isn't your website personally, for anyone else watching, all of the feedback, all of the insight will apply to other websites you might be thinking about building for yourself. So this will absolutely be helpful. Okay, so I am pulling it up right now. And
Okay.
James, I will let you take it away.
All right. So we start off with Natalie's. So as we're looking at the website, we have to figure out from a user experience and a user interface perspective. It's like, okay, so
Mhm.
how is the person able to navigate the website? And so
Okay.
we start off at the top with our top navigation. Now for Natalie, she's got this gradient banner with a little bit of an icon here, but there's no name associated with it. So
Mhm.
if you're going to have something that big, my suggestion would be is to have Natalie Locke Books or something up there that kind of fills that space out, because right now
Mhm.
it's just a bunch of empty space with a gradient on it. So it kind of takes away from it. And also, the banner itself is really big. It's about twice the size that it needs to be. So I would suggest kind of taking that down to about half the size. because the
And
logo
by
was
the way,
still
James,
top.
just real quick, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt here. For anyone who wants to check it out and like be watching this while we are, I believe the website is natalielockbooks.com.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So natalielockbooks.com. You guys want to follow along with what James is pointing out.
Yeah. So there's that. And then you've got your navigation here at the bottom. The navigation is kind of off center, which some people like that. For me, the big thing that I would say is that when you're talking in terms of your navigation is ensuring that your navigation is complete. And what I mean by complete is that if you look over here, very, very small, you got those triple dots. And when you hover over it, it has contact. So your contact is nearly hidden because those dots are really hard to see in the scope of your thing. In terms of like font size, it's very, very small. So for me, I would actually, instead of having those triple dots there, I would move over the navigation and then have contact be an actual primary one that's there and visible. Having drop downs like what she's got here, that's perfectly fine because it's easier to tell with the down arrow that there is a submenu to that. Going a little bit further down, you've got your pre-order now. So this is the book. And so what I'm getting as a user coming to the website is that you're focused in terms of your website on your book, the 1,000 words to get started. And you've got it for pre-order now. And then you've got your links here with all of the different places in which they can go, which is good. You want to make sure that aesthetically that you want to try and line up the logos as much as possible. And I know it's extremely difficult to do because they all come in different sizes. And when you try to put them on there, there's just no way that they align up, but trying to get it as much aligned as possible. And then going a little bit further down, you've got Natalie Locke. You've got the information about who Natalie is, the genre, and the about, and which that is good because that gives the experience that when a potential fan of yours comes to the website, they can kind of get a little bit of information about who you are. And it kind of helps out with your SEO as well, your search engine optimization, because part of building out a website is that you not only want to have your fans that know you coming to your website, but you want to be able to have potential fans who have not found you yet be able to find you in search, because everybody goes to Google and everybody wants to look up, and they go in there like, oh, flash fiction author. And you want to make sure that when they search up flash fiction author, that your name in your website pops up in that search criteria. So having things, what they call EEAT, which is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. The big trustworthiness factor is having an about page, so that not only do your end users know who you are, but also Google and their algorithm knows who you are and that you're actually a person with the ideas and experience that's necessary.
And James, before you hop into the next part, I know Natalie said it was so hard. Thank God you're critiquing on website instead of a phone or tablet. And this brings up a good question. Do you have to rebuild a different variation of the website from a computer, a desktop, to a mobile version?
Yes. So an important thing is when a website is being built, mobile optimization is one of the biggest things that's needed nowadays. And the reason why is because around 87% of users who browse the internet now browse on their cell phones. So not having it mobile optimized and the font size being blown out, it really creates problems. And so you want to make sure that when you are going through that process, that you are taking the time to optimize your fonts, optimize your images, optimize the layout to ensure that when it's down at the mobile size, that it shows up correctly as well.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Awesome. And then we got the more about me. So it's a call to action for you to go to actually learn more, support the site. So you got another call to action here. Having too many calls to action back to back does create analysis paralysis, and so you're not clear in what you want them to do. And so oftentimes what you want to do is you want to space out your call to actions a little bit further so that they're not on top of each other. So if you pull down and you can see both of them at the same time, they're a little bit too close. So you want to kind of space that out. So take the more about me button and move it up, or take the buy me a coffee and move it further down and have something in between.
Well, would you suggest adding like a different, like another element or another, like something else to read in between those sections?
Yes.
Or is
So
it just a spacing thing?
I would say one of the things that you could add in there that would be really good would be social proof. So if you have a book that's published, or you've had a book that you've sent out to ARC readers, or you've had an editorial review, any of those things, those can be posted as a review or social proof on the website. And that kind of helps with, bolstering your website's SEO as well, because you've got what they call social proof on there that people like your book. And from a user experience, having good positive reviews that to look at are good. They're not as important now in days because Amazon and the whole buying review thing really tainted that a lot for people. But still,
so do you think you could still like pull do you think you could pull like comment, like social media comments and things like, hey, showing snapshots that people really liked it? Or is it more just like I need to show like a testimonial?
You can do snapshots. If I prefer having more in terms of usually in any of the website builders that you'll find, there will be a social proof block that you can pull up.
Okay.
And you just basically put in the information. So it's whatever the quote is, and then the person that made the quote and where they made the quote from. And so then you would just fill it out and it just kind of rotates through. Those are a lot better than having the screenshots. But if that's all that you've got, then yeah, you can definitely use those. But it would be able to kind of space out your homepage and kind of create that separation and, separate those call to actions a little bit more. And then further down, you've got the where else to find me, and then you've got your links at the bottom, which is great. Anytime you have any kind of social media, you always want to make sure that those social media links are at the bottom of your pages. And the reason why is because English readers like to read from top to bottom, left to right. And so if you put your hyperlinks at the top, what ends up occurring is that they come to your website, they read across, they see your hyperlinks to YouTube, and they're like, you know what? I want to go and take a look at their YouTube channel. And then they click off and then they're gone. And so they never see the rest of the website because you've given them the opportunity to jump off right at the beginning. So having it at the bottom allows for them to be able to basically it forces them to scroll all the way down to the bottom in order to be able to see any socials. And so that's what you got. Now, if the focus of your website is your YouTube channel, then yes, you want to have that at the top. But if it's focused on you as an author, it's focused on your book, then you want to make sure that it's down at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of your pages. That way you can easily have them come through and scroll through your website, learn about you. And then if they want to jump in and do some more stuff, like hit your Instagram or your TikTok or any of that stuff, they can easily do it after they've learned about you.
Yeah.
And then down at the bottom, you got your all rights reserved. A lot of times I see, so with copyrights are kind of weird. On everything that I do, I put the copyright with a year, and I have the year programmatically rotates to where it goes to the most current year, just so that they know that the copyright's up to date, because copyrights do fall out over time. And so if you just got like a copyright and they don't know how old your website is, they could inadvertently use your stuff. And then when you're like, oh, well, that's copyright. It's like, well, yeah, but you didn't specify the year in which it was. So
that's a really interesting point. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yep. And then she's got the logo, the Natalie Locke. So that logo down at the bottom should also be at the top with the Natalie Locke and the writer Finding Joy in My Passion. that could be up at the top, replacing the one that's there.
James, question on the logo, just aesthetically, I'm saying, do you think the font, the wording on it is too small?
Yeah,
When you
well,
look at
for
that
this
logo, because I
size of
see a
logo
little
down here
writer
at the
finding
bottom,
joy in my passion. But I
yeah.
mean, like,
So
even with the placement, it feels like the writing should be bigger, right?
yes.
Mhm,
So you want to make sure that it's the readability factor. So ensuring that the fonts are not only large enough to be able to be read, but also in a font type that is easy to be read. So
mhm,
your sans serifs are typically the most easy to read. In terms
mhm,
of your headers, like she's got the Natalie Locke.
mhm,
If you want to get crazy with that, as long as it's legible and you can read it, because
mhm,
typically logos are large,
mhm.
but subheaders are smaller, and your text, your body text, is typically smaller too. So you want to
Okay.
ensure that your the fonts that you choose are readable fonts. And if you're not sure if your font that you have is readable, you can easily get on Google and be like, web readable fonts, and it'll give you a whole list. And
Mhm,
usually, you're good
mhm,
with the sans serifs, um, like your Times New Romans, your sans, things like that. Those are typically the more popular related to readability, and so you'll see a lot of websites use those basic fonts like that, at least for the text itself. And then they just kind of get a little bit wild on the headers, just so that it changes it up. And as far as fonts are concerned, no more than 2 fonts on your website. Don't get crazy with it, because the more fonts you put on the website, the slower your website is going to become, because it's got to load those fonts into the website. Every page that loads, it's loading
mhm,
those fonts in the background. And those fonts can be pretty large, especially the true type fonts.
mhm.
But yeah, no, I agree that in terms of the logo, the subheading of it does need
Mhm.
to be large enough to where it's easily legible.
Okay.
Um, And so like I was saying, is I would take this logo here, make it larger, and then move it up to the top to where it's there.
Okay.
All right. And then
Awesome.
looking at some of the other pages, like the about page here, again, it's really great to have an about page, because that it helps with that trustworthiness.
Mhm.
And then talking about your story, it makes you relatable, makes you real. And so
I
that
like the
helps out.
relatability. I get the book hoarder, and then I get the Pokemon.
Yeah.
When I see that tattoo, I'm like, "Okay, cool. Nerd
Yep.
vibe, count me in. Perfect."
And that's the good thing is like when you make it personal, and you make it
Mhm,
in a way that it shows who you are as a person, people can they gravitate towards that, because people don't like fake, so they gravitate towards what's real. And so if
and
you're showing
especially with
yourself as
AI.
real,
AI is
yeah.
pushing people towards real,
Well, even
even
before AI came into into practice, people still wanted real. It's like putting on a fake persona. It turns people off after a
Mhm,
while, and so them knowing that you're real, and who you are when you're doing your YouTube videos, or when you're
mhm,
out in doing public appearances, that's the real you. It goes
mhm,
a long ways, because they can relate to you better, and because they can relate to you better, they become fans. And so it's
mhm.
really, really easy for you to build that community around who you are as a person. And with authors, you are the brand. It doesn't really matter what you try to do. When it's all said and done, you are the brand. Whether that's your pen name that you choose, or whether that's you as your regular name. Either way, you're building yourself up as a brand, because it's you who is going to draw them in. It's you who is going to sell your books. It's you who is going to build your community. So you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, and that you're showing more about who you are, um, as a part of that. And then you got
Okay.
the view my projects, which will come up here to the projects here. Your navigation changes. So when you go there, it does the sub. And I like the way these do it sometimes. Sometimes they're a little bit of a pain to deal with, because it throws off your navigation because it's shifting. So home and about used to be on the right hand side, now it's over here on the left, and so you got to readjust your thought process to do it. But some of the websites,
Oh yeah,
the themes,
I see. Yeah,
do it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got your published works, and so this is the published work that you've got. Just make sure that when you're putting it on here that you've got it set up in a way that provides the most information and the best information for them to be able to understand what your book is about. And then having a call to action like your pre-order here. Great. I would make the call to action bigger. Just saying, if you're wanting them to pre-order and that's what you're wanting them to do as a part of coming to this page, you want to make this as big and as bright and as beautiful as possible to ensure that you're basically telling them, oh, hey, look, I can pre-order and go down there. So make the button a little bit bigger, make the font inside, the text bigger, and make it brighter color. Gray kind of blends in. So you want to make sure that you do something that makes it stand out. Your projects here. So these are the projects that you're currently working on. I like that you've got an editing progress or a progress bar. These are really good for letting them know what what you've got upcoming. So really good on that. Just make sure that when you're doing these, that you're kind of keeping things equal as much as you can. In terms of like your blurbs, if you got like one blurb that's 100 characters long and then you got another blurb that's 1,000 characters long, it really throws off the actual look and feel of the page itself. So kind of balancing out, because any pages that you go on, it ends up becoming a balancing act on how it's laid out. So I like that. I like that you've got everything there. And then your My Flashes. So these are more of a deep dive into some of your flash fiction that you've done. And you give the information and the amount of words, which is really good. Uncategorized. So that tells me that you're not properly categorizing your posts. So you're using posts here, which you typically do, but you're not categorizing. So I would go in and I would make sure to designate your categorization into whatever it is. So do one called flash fiction. And then that way you've got that here. And so when they click on it, because when they click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to take you to that category. And so all of the stuff that's categorized the same will show up there. And so here, going underneath to the uncategorized, you can see it says blog and not flashes. And you've got lorem ipsum here. So making sure that you go through and you check all of those out and then categorizing those appropriately. That way it's driving it. If they're wanting to find out more about your flash fiction, they click on that hyperlink for flash fiction. It takes them to all the different flash fictions there. And then make sure that you go to each one of these pages and ensure that they're updated with the appropriate information about what those specific categories are about. And then the last thing you've got here that is visible on your menu is your newsletter. And so here, I'm not quite sure what this is that you've got here.
It looks like some type of like an event timeline. I mean, maybe it's like when she's finished writing each of the books.
And that's the thing is, like, for me coming in here new,
August 1st.
I don't know what this is.
Oh, they're links. So, if you click on them, each of them, it looks like are links.
Yeah, they're links.
Just trying to figure out what it is. So maybe a blog, another
mail poet routers. So it's taking them to the whatever that specific newsletter is. So if you're wanting them to be able to link over into the newsletters, what I would do is I would create a header right above it saying newsletter archive.
Yeah.
That way you're really specifying, because the little banner
Yep.
image that you have at the top doesn't tell you anything. And those links don't really tell you anything. And people have gotten to where they're a little bit hesitant about clicking links that they don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Ain't that the
Because
truth?
so many people, you can end up with malware on your web, on your computer and stuff, just by clicking on a hyperlink and going to a page that's filled with malware. So they get very, very hesitant. So I would say definitely put some sort of a header up here, like what you put in your chat, newsletter archive. That way you're designating what it is and the purpose. And then you've got your sign up here for joining the club, and that you don't spam, and that you get your privacy policy, which is great. And then the last thing that you've got here is you got your contact. And so this is their way to contact you. So you've got the name, email, subject, message. So that's all good. You got a nice little image here. And so from a website, in terms of the website itself, it's laid out. It's laid out good. I would make some of the updates that I was talking about to make it better, to kind of improve that navigation and kind of improve that user experience. The other things that I would think of that you may want to try and do is look at creating either a reader magnet or a loss leader. It could be something as simple as your upcoming book, the first chapter or the first 3 chapters of your upcoming book, or a short story that you write, something like that, and have that as a means of enticing them to sign up for the newsletter. Because we've got so many newsletters that we sign up for, and we get inundated with emails and stuff. And so a lot of times people want to have something in return for providing that email address. And so having a reader magnet is always a good option. You don't necessarily have to have it, but I've seen through dealing with other authors that those free offerings,
The free offering, yeah,
are extremely important for building those community and building up that newsletter list.
Yeah, I know. I can speak to. I've done a lot of research in newsletters. I know. I personally, because my brand is a little bit more about helping writers, I created an editing tool, which is like a 15-page PDF to help writers with editing, and then they get that when they sign up for the newsletter. I know a lot of authors, generally, like you said, James, will offer like a sample chapter or like some type of like thing into the book. Is there? Do you have a newsletter set up? Do you have anything that you offer?
I don't have it set up yet. I'm working on it. But I have a prequel. It's a 5-chapter prequel for my main novel of one of the characters that's in the harem. One of the harem members.
That's actually kind of cool. That's cool.
Yep. So I'll probably end up doing backstories. It's kind of like the way I did it was it's kind of a backstory. It goes back in time a little bit. And it goes up to the point in which they meet the main character. And that's
interesting. So you kind of get backstory on a character.
You get a little bit of history about who they were prior to them meeting the main character or their love interest. And so you kind of get a chance to see what they've gone through and stuff like that. So
awesome.
That's what
it looks like Natalie also mentioned we have a free gift for pre-order, but you need to highlight it on the website.
Yeah. Definitely need to highlight anything that you're providing in terms of offerings to encourage them to sign up. Definitely make sure that you call that out as a part of that call to action for joining the newsletter. Because otherwise they don't know. And while people may like surprises, you may never get them to sign up without that. And so you want to put your best foot forward. You want to put as much into the offering that you can. It's just like me doing the stream here with Jared. We're providing value. And so because we're providing value and that you're gaining value out of it, it makes you want to ask questions. It makes you want to interact. It makes you want to, look at doing your website, spurs you on and encourages you and inspires you even to go ahead and go out there and do the things that you need to do for your website. So that's what these are about. And same thing with the authors, offering something that they can grab hold of and they can read and get a little bit get that little bit of a taste of, what type of writer are you? What kind of information? How do you write? That kind of stuff. It just gives them that sneak peek into your world, and then you can entice them further, and then you have a greater chance of making them fans or potentially super fans, depending upon how well you write.
Awesome. So with that being said, I just want to say, Natalie, first off, thank you so much for submitting the website.
Yes.
I got so much value just by listening to James going over all the things on it. So James, thank you for that. Like every single time I'm learning something new, which is great.
Oh, Penelope made it.
A beautiful, beautiful timing. So,
Yes.
and then also, now there's something I do want to call out, because we're all at different stages of our website development. Like I've gone through so many iterations. So like there's so much, take this as a learning experience and then like improve it step by step. It's a process.
Definitely.
James, how long on average would you say it takes you to get the website to like that right, like that a great level where you feel great about all the aspects of it? How long does it take you?
For me,
like on average, maybe the average.
I can usually go from initial meeting to website ready for deployment in 2 weeks.
Okay. And that's you as an expert. So then I think about somebody as like the average writer. You think it takes probably what, a couple months? Unless they have like a lot of time to invest into it.
Yeah, it really depends upon the amount of time that they can put into it. Because there's just a lot that you need to do. And if you don't really know web design, because there's two different sides of it, right? So you've got web design and you've got web development. So the development is the actual building of the website, and then you got the design, which talks about the aesthetics and the layout. So you've got to learn both sides of it. So you've got to learn what's currently trending, what's popular, what's easy to deal with from a design perspective, and then you've got to have the technical know-how to actually build that out onto that web page. So
awesome. Great feedback. Excellent.
Yep.
And let's see, Penelope, by the way, perfect timing. We're actually about to hop into your website next. And Natalie was just saying, thank you so much for honest feedback and steps to improve.
Not a problem.
Awesome.
Anytime.
All right, perfect. And then right before we hop into Penelope's website, just a few quick call outs. Novel had a really great question here, which I just wanted to highlight. Novel character asked, what do you guys think of word count updates and work in progress pages?
For me, I think word count, it's one of those that if you want to do a statistics block and kind of keep track of the word count, that's fine. Your story progress pages are good because it kind of gives those people who are very interested in seeing where you are in terms, especially if you published a book and you're working on book 2 of that series or book 3, it really, the people who are fans, they want to know where you're at in that process to understand, how soon it is they're going to be able to get a hold of that book.
That's really what it is, right? The fan just want to know, when can I read the next book?
Yeah, or when's that next story coming out? Whatever the case, however you do, if you're doing like short fiction or you're doing Vela, hey, when's that next Vela episode coming out, kind of thing. So yeah, the story progress pages are good. Statistics, you can have fun with it. You can have like 150,000 words, 500 cups of coffee. You can do all kinds of little things and come up with really crazy statistics, which is kind of fun that you can throw in there as an additional fun element. But in terms of whether or not it's important for the user, it's not really. They don't really care how many words that you've written. What they care about is whether you've written them well and whether or not you're going to be publishing them to where they can actually read what you've written, kind of thing. So the amount, not as important.
Awesome. I think that's good feedback. So let's see. Novel character. Think Brandon Sanderson style. Yeah, absolutely agreed. And Rachel, as an author and spouse to this expert, awesome. I begin with my own website, and it was just bare bones, almost a landing page for years until I had the need to upgrade. Your website journey will depend on where you are in your author journey.
Yep.
That's absolutely phenomenal advice. Very, very phenomenal. And then right before we hop into Penelope's, a couple announcements. So once again, if you're wanting feedback on your website, the submission link is down in the YouTube description, and it's also posted, pinned at the top of the chat and the comments. So follow the submission link to get feedback. As you've seen from this first one, James knows what he's talking about. So this is really awesome. So definitely go submit if you need feedback on your website. And then James, I want to do a quick call out. So if people want to learn more about you, or they want to look into maybe setting up a consult to learn more about your services, where should they go?
So the best place to get a hold of me would be on my website, wtccreatives.com. And on there is a contact form that you can fill out, and that will allow for me to kind of get with you in terms of the consultation. The initial consultation is free, and we will have a conversation about your website. We'll pick it apart. And even if you choose, like if you decide to go with the consultation, kind of like what we're doing here with the stream, I'll give you insight into terms of what your website currently is and where it could be. And then you can make the choice of, you can either do it yourself and make those updates on your own, or if you choose that you want to work with me, you can work with me. And I kind of do things a little bit different than your normal web designer. Mm-hmm. So I use what they call a managed website development package. And what I mean by managed website is that typically when you reach out to a web designer or web developer, they're like, hey, yeah, I can do you a 5-page website. It's going to cost you $3,000. I need 50% up front and then 50% upon delivery. And that's typically what you run into most times when you're dealing with developers. For me, I go manage WordPress. So I go, hey, so your total cost is going to be $3,000. Do you want to break that down by 12 months, 18 months, or 24 months?
Okay. So you split
break it down into monthly payments. And then that
makes it easier because that makes it manageable.
Yes, it makes it manageable. It makes it, you can easily budget for it. And then I handle the hosting. I handle the updates. I offer an hour per month of development time, to where if there's something on the website that you want changed up, I can go in there and make those changes. As long as it's within an hour of work, it can easily be done. So I get contacted from the authors that I currently have as clients, and they let me know what changes are necessary, and I go in and make the changes for them. And then I also make sure that their plugins are all up to date, their website's up to date, nothing's looking weird. If they see anything weird, they get in contact with me. I go out there and fix it. So it's one of those things that where you have one thing less that you have to worry about as a part of this process, because I take care of the hosting, I take care of the maintenance. You just pay a monthly payment, and you have a website all done you can be proud of.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for sharing that. And then once again, for our community here, if you want to find out more about James, and give me just a second. Perfect. So if you want to find out more about James, where the website WTC Creatives is linked down in the YouTube description down below. So definitely go check that out. And we're going to hop right into the second website review with Penelope. And before we do that, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community. We're here with daily writing streams to help you with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to be an author, get that first book out, and start building up that readership or audience. So tap those buttons, because we are less than 20 subscribers away till we hit that 500 subscriber goal and the official launch of the Right Now Discord channel. So smash that button, share it with a friend, and we're going to be continuing on right now. All right, James. So I got Miss Penelope all pulled up, and then let's see. Let me pull up. What's the website?
It is PenelopeHartley.com.
Awesome. PenelopeHartley.com. I'll drop it down in the chat if anybody wants to follow along, and I'll let you take it away, James.
All right. So this is the website for Penelope or Giuseppe. I forget from time to time. But as you can see here in terms of the website, it's a very beautiful website. And I know that Penelope is proud of the beauty of the website. So we can start here at the top. We can talk in terms of navigation. So the logo is off-centered. And I don't know if that's by design. I typically don't see it like that. I usually see two types of navigation designs. One type of navigation design is where the logo is on the far left, your hyperlinks for your navigation is on the right, or I see the logo centered in the middle of the bar and then having the hyperlink split on the two sides. Those are the two that I typically see. So it's off kilter because the logo itself is not aligned center. It's off to the side. This is
James,
the
it looks like
line
it's
here.
connected to the header because I'm playing around with the screen
Yeah,
size on my end, and it looks like it's connected to the
yeah,
header itself. Mhm.
yeah. So it's if you can get it to where it's separated, it'll work a little bit better. The other thing that I see here is that you've got your homepage is called Blueprint. User navigation, user experience perspective. Blueprint's kind of confusing because nobody knows what Blueprint means, but they know what home means. So I would change Blueprint to home if you're going to have it on there, even though your logo does point back to your homepage, and people are kind of used to clicking on the logo to go back to the homepage. So you don't technically even need a home hyperlink here, but if you want one, I would say kind of change that over to make it say home or home page, something like that. So we've got the banner here, the beautiful picture of Penelope with Penelope Hartley. Very well done.
James, I just want to say it sounds like there might have been some challenges with, let's see, Penelope said, I've had frustrations with centering the links banners over the rest of the page.
Yeah.
And this followed up by Rachel had a great question. What does misalignment do to the mobile version? So do you have any recommendations on like banner alignment or things at the top?
So in terms of mobile, so typically there's breakpoints within the website. So when I talk about breakpoints, I talk about in terms of the width of the page. So when you're on a desktop, it's typically 1024 pixels or greater. And so that's where you end up with that wide. Then when you get below 1024, it goes into kind of the, oh no, it's 768. Sorry, 768. Then it flips over into what they call tablet size. So everything compresses down a little bit further. And then when you get below around 500, it's 480 something. Then you end up in mobile. And so what happens is that you're taking the width of that screen and you're compressing it together. And so the more you compress, what ends up occurring is that either it's going to shift or it's going to compete with each other and it's going to press out the page beyond the cell phone borders. And so you'll see it on some websites. If they're not mobile optimized, you'll see that you'll go to the main page and you'll have to actually take your finger and swipe over just to get to see the other side of the page because half of the page is cut off because it's not mobile optimized. So you want to make sure that it fits properly. Now, when it gets down to the mobile, the navigation menu like this should change into like a hamburger menu. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure and test. And there's a way that you can test it like this is when you adjust your page. As you're going down, you can see here that this would be the mobile size. Her page is not mobile optimized, so it's like her logo is completely cut off and half of her navigation is gone. And then when you look down here at the bottom, you're having to scroll back and forth.
Interesting.
So when you're looking in terms of your web page, you want to kind of take a look at that and just make that adjustment. Just take your page out of full screen and squash it down as small as you can possibly squash it. And then that's typically right around what a mobile menu looks like. And so you can kind of see from there.
Awesome. You said what, like 70, 80% of people generally tend to prefer scrolling on their phone?
87%.
87% are probably going to see your website first as a mobile. And then I also know, like with me using With Squarespace, I know they have analytics, so I can actually see the
Mhm.
percentage of both.
Yeah. And just think about it like if you're out, right? So you've got a book published and you're out at an event. When they're talking with you, they go, "Hey, do you got a website?" Yeah. What's the first thing they do? They pull that cell phone
Pull the
out
phone up. Yep.
and they either scan your QR code if you happen to have one of those at
Mhm.
your table, or they get your web address and they type it in, and they're looking at your mobile first. So
Mhm.
always keep that in mind that as time has progressed and as mobile phones have gotten more advanced as they have, more people are using those as their web browsers. So having that mobile optimization is extremely important. So having banners that are there that resize down to make to where they fit within the confines of the mobile is something that you want to look into.
James, this is actually really interesting. So Penelope just said Wix has me edit both the desktop and mobile version. So I assume that it reformatted it depending on the device. I just pulled it up on my end and I'll just show you guys real quick. So it reformatted it on the phone because it's the
Yeah,
device. So it looks like it did reformat it for the
yeah,
phone.
yeah. So Wix will do that. Some of them won't.
I don't think Squarespace is weird. It's the same like
Yeah,
version, but they give you the options, but the formatting stays the same. It's
yeah.
really annoying.
So it's just like I said, is if you're working on your web page, make sure that one of the things that you do is pull it up on your cell phone and look at it. And if you're seeing anything that's off kilter, make the adjustments. If they a lot of the web pages like your Squarespaces and Wixes and WordPresses allow for you to kind of squish down to that and make the adjustments, because sometimes you may need to adjust the font size. So when you're at full screen, your font is really big. But as you start going down to mobile, you want to make sure that that font size goes down incrementally to match with the actual screen size itself.
And the only thing I'm saying from the mobile is just the banner. It looks like is twice,
Yeah.
is like one on top of the each other. Penelope. So just something to be aware of.
Well, the other thing, if you look at your phone,
Mhm.
where's the navigation at?
So it's hidden. So the
Yeah.
hamburger menu is up here, but
Hmm.
because of the coloring of the banner, because it's a
Yep.
dark banner, you just can't see it.
Yep.
Which means that the only way to fix that is you have to probably adjust the banner so it's lighter in this corner.
Either adjust the banner or you can adjust those hamburgers and change the color of it. Make it a bright color. Make it
Yeah,
that
make them like
purple
white or
color.
something. Purple. Yep.
Make it stand out so that when they're down
Mhm.
at mobile, they easily know exactly where that hamburger menu is, because if they don't, they're just going to look right over it.
Mhm. Awesome.
All right. So the other thing is a Mason grid, and it one thing you got to be careful in, that's what I mentioned earlier in terms of with portfolio websites, is when you think in terms of portfolio websites, you're talking in terms of portfolios, i.e. artists and stuff. So when I first came to your website, Penelope, I was like, oh, is she an artist? Because you have a lot of artwork on here, and artists are doing these types of portfolios and including their book covers that they've done for clients. So while it's very pretty and stuff, it can be confusing for somebody coming to the website because they can mistake you as being an artist instead of an author.
Interesting. It's interesting because when you go up to the banner, it says obviously the writer's in her logo,
Yep.
but it's so small, and then the
Yep.
vibrancy of the images is so big that you almost forget about that. You're like, oh wow, cool images.
Yes.
Yeah, I could
So
see
it's
that.
just one of those things to kind of keep in mind that when you're doing a portfolio website, this is what a portfolio website will end up being is typically like Mason grid with the ability to add in a bunch of images and stuff. From an aesthetic and beauty perspective, yes, it is very beautiful because it's designed that way. It's designed to be very visually appealing
Mhm.
for people to want to have them as an artist or have them as a photographer, things like that. But as an author, your beauty is in your words and not the images. So it's kind of setting up, is setting expectations
Mhm.
to the wrong way in terms of like how the audience, when they come to your website just fresh, that they're thinking, oh well, they're an artist, but then they find out, oh no, the art is a part of the characters for the books. And so it kind of throws that off a little bit. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind.
James, what would be your recommendation for somebody who wants to, for an author who wants to use this style? Is there like a mixed approach that you can recommend, or?
So for this here, if I were, from my perspective, being an author, what I would do is I would focus in more on the books than I would on the character art.
Okay.
So up here at the top, you got the image of Jezebel and you got the other images here. I would have all of your book covers at the top.
Okay.
So that they see that, oh, they're books. And then you can include your character art further down, or leave your character art completely off. It's up to you on how you want to do it. Again, I go back to the whole prospect, and the whole suggestion is that if you want to do your website and like this, and you want to do a portfolio and you want to have all that stuff, then do whatever makes you happy. Just make sure that you're very methodical and very you making sure that that's the way you want them to see you when they come.
It's like intentional with the user experience,
yeah,
right?
you want to be intentional.
Make it clear what the user sees.
Yeah. And like I said, Penelope, if you want to keep the portfolio side of it, then by all means. But I would definitely shift your book covers up towards the top to make them the focus, because your top space, or what they call above the fold, is where they come to see. And when they come to see here, they don't have a clear idea of who you are. So if they think that you're an artist and they're not looking for an artist, they may get curious about the pictures and click on the pictures, but otherwise they may just go ahead and bounce. So you want to be very intentional.
It's meant to be an intuitive introduction to the collected works, kind of like a tarot spread. Maybe I'll put some sort of written indication to help people navigate.
Yeah.
And I think quotes could doing that, combining quotes with the book covers. Maybe.
Yes. Even on the images here, like the image of Jezebel, one of the quirky quotes that Jezebel goes, throw it on there. Same thing with these other ones, because when you're looking at these images here that you've got, you don't know who these characters are. You have no clue. And so having some sort of an identification here to kind of give them that enticing them, saying, oh, so I see here I've got Jezebel's Theater Macabre Delights. Okay, this is Jezebel, and there's a quote. Okay, well, maybe I want to click on that, and just kind of make it a little bit more enticing for them to want to actually click on those images. Otherwise, they're just
linking to like a character descriptions. As like a writer, I could be like, oh, I like Jezebel. I like that quote. Click, learn more about Jezebel as a character.
Yeah. And that's what these do, is these actually jump into character. It jumps into a character page and gives a little bit more information, which is great. I love the fact that you're fleshing out your characters and actually making those descriptions as a part of the website, which is really good, because your characters become an important part of the story. And so you want to make sure that you're giving them the best light possible. All right. So scrolling down here at the bottom. So we got join our mailing list. And I know this is a Wix website, because the footer is very, very plain. And so it's off-putting, really, when you think about it, because you've got all the dark colors up here, all the way down. You got your purples, you've got your dark purples, all these vivid colors, and then you get down here and it's just white. So adjust the color here. Either make it match the current background to where it flows, or make it that purple color that's up at the top. Oftentimes when I do headers and footers, I try to match the colors between the headers and footers to where there's that break that, hey, this is the start of the page, and hey, this is the end of the page. But it kind of matches aesthetically. The other thing that I know that's a Wix website is because you have Instagram for Wix on here as one of the hyperlinks.
Interesting.
This other Instagram is a dead link. It doesn't work.
So they're just not linked correctly, I see.
Yeah. So making sure that if you have socials at the bottom of your page, which is great, the socials at the bottom, I highly recommend that at all times, but making sure that they're going to the right things. If you have an Instagram account and they click on it and they're being taken to Wix's Instagram account instead of yours, that kind of, it's a loss for you, because one, they're not going to see your socials because you've led them to a completely different social that doesn't belong to you, unless you own Wix. If you do, congratulations. If you're looking for anybody to adopt, hey, I'm here. But otherwise, what you're doing is you're portraying yourself in a less professional manner, because you have a link that they would assume, as an end user coming to your website, would be going to more about you and not about the web portal that you're utilizing in terms for your website. So,
as a heads up, Penelope, the two links that need to be fixed is the Instagram one, obviously, and then the TikTok. The TikTok link is broken as well.
Yeah. So
FYI.
Just making sure, and again, it's like a child or a pet. You always got to stay on top of it, and you've got to test out your links and make sure, even on your mailing list, right? Always test out from time to time. The mailing companies, like your MailerLites and your MailChimps, they make updates, and sometimes the updates that they make actually breaks the subscribes. So test it out periodically. So when you're going in there, you're doing your testing, just go to it and type in one of your Gmail addresses, click subscribe, make sure that it transfers over and you can actually see it in your mailing list. All right. So next one would be your purchase. So these are the printed titles that you have. So you currently have the Datura's Requiem. You got signed paperbacks, you got the electronic edition, and then you have Learn More. And then you have your serial fiction that is on Amazon Vella and Ream, I'm guessing. These are not, so these are, but these down here are not hyperlinks. And so if you are on Amazon Vella for your Macabre series, it's always great to have those immediate call to actions, because if they come in here and they're like, oh, Jezebel's Theater, Macabre Delights, and they read through that blurb and they're like, man, I want to read this. Amazon Vella. Okay, well, okay, so now I've got to open up another tab, go to Amazon, go to Vella, search for Penelope Hartley, or search for Jezebel Theater Macabre Delights in order to find it. So you're basically putting more stops in front of their ability to get to your stuff. So you're putting those blockades up, and you don't need to. You need to make it as simple and as easy as possible. You need to make it dead easy. Borrowing from Jezebel's ideas, dead easy. So Amazon Vella should be a hyperlink to Amazon Vella to your page that has that series on there. Ream, you've got erotic on there. That's great. It should be linking to your appropriate Ream page. Learn More. Okay, what are we learning more about? And where does it go? Because it's not a hyperlink. It just says Learn More with the triple dots, and it doesn't take you anywhere. So it's kind of it's not very good from a user perspective, because then a lot of times when you see Learn More, it's usually a link that you click on and it takes you to another page that gives you a whole bunch more information. Resurrecting the website links this weekend. Yes, definitely. But there again, when you're looking at this, making sure that you have your hyperlinks in there. Otherwise, the setup in here is good. Having the title, having your blurb there is great. The only other thing that I would say that if you wanted to add stuff in here is that you could potentially add in some of the social proof. So if you get like on Vella, if you've got a review that was a glowing review that's short and sweet, you can put that in here so that you've got you got the title, you've got the blurb. Right down below that, you've got this series is absolutely fantastic. I love the Jezebel character. She's amazing. Da 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 da. Whatever it may be, you can have that put in there, and then have it, their name and then Amazon review, just so that you're identifying it. And then that way there's social proof that they're actually seeing that there's people that have read it and they liked it. So it helps entice them a little bit more to want to buy it. All right. And then we got over here with your Love Spell Murderers. So this is the, view in store. It's not a hyperlink, so you can't go to the store from here. Again, making that navigation dead easy for them. And then Ream, it's a completely different size, completely different font, and capitalization is completely different. But again, it's not a link. So you're missing out opportunities that people that come here and actually see it and they become interested. You're making things more difficult for them to actually go to it. So you want to make sure that when you're doing that revamp on the links that you make these links. If you're saying view in store, it needs to go to the store. If you want them to go to Ream, make sure that it does link over to Ream. Then you have a sub character for all your characters, which is blank. So you want to make sure that all of these actually work when you're going through. And so again, going back to the whole, it's a pet. So you want to make sure that you're testing your links as well, because you don't want to run into a situation where you've got a blank page because it doesn't really look that good.
This happened to me so many times in just building up my own Squarespace website.
Yeah,
I would it's really it would work great, and then I check it back like a couple weeks later, and a couple of them would be broken. I'm like,
yep,
I thought this was perfect.
Yeah, you've got to stay on it. It's one of those things. I'm constantly getting pinged by my wife who's in chat. I was like, hey, my book page, the images on the books are blown out because, well, Elementor made an update. And when I updated the database, it changed the formatting. So I had to go in there and make a quick update to the page, and then it's back to normal. It just happens every once in a while. It's not an every time thing, but it does happen. And so you want to make sure that you keep your website up to date and you keep everything situated. So here with Jezebel, you've got the hyperlink to Ream, and you've got your Kindle Vella that goes to that specific story. So you did good here. It's just that you didn't include them on the other pages. So going through and making sure. And then you break down your books a little bit more. The Useful Idiots, book 2 or series 2. Vella's kind of weird. The Bad Dog Sit. So you've got those. I like the way you broke them up. You've got specific blurbs related to those. Very good. I like the way that's set up. The only thing that I would say that you may want to take a look at is in terms of your spacing, ensure that everything has appropriate spacing both above and below each of the sections. Because right here, it's very, very close to the top and very close to that bar at the bottom. You might want to increase the space a little bit. Usually 50 pixel space is good on both top and bottom. And the reason why you want to have that space is because as the screen size shifts, it can run up underneath the header. So because you have a sticky header here at the top that stays at the top, when the screen size changes, the fonts as they shift will actually shift up above and could end up hiding up behind your header. And so they may not even be able to see this title at all on a mobile phone, or they may not even be able to see Jezebel's face on a mobile phone. They'll actually just see from the neck down kind of thing. So it's just something to kind of keep an eye on, is create some sort of a space in between. And it also helps with spacing out the web page to make it look a little bit larger and fuller. Your next one is your poetry. Again, we've got a blank page. Then we have your connect. So here's your connect page with all of your stuff. None of these are hyperlinks. They're all dead. So I see Jezebel on Instagram, but I can't click on it to go to Instagram to your Instagram page. So if you're going to have these in here, make sure that they are actually hyperlinks that allow for people to click on it and go to those specific socials. All right. And then the last thing is your shop. So you have currently in your shop, you've got your Dator's Requiem, you've got your signed paperback, and you have your ebook. my question for you is, how can a digital ebook be out of stock?
It's a good point.
Because if it's out of stock, it means they can't order it. So that means that you're getting no ebook sales directly through your website at all right now. So either set that, because I know that you can set in each of those, the e-commerce stuff, you can set the amount that you've got in there. So either turn that completely off to where there isn't a set amount available, or change it around to where it's infinite. That way it's always available. And that way, if somebody comes here and they want to get the ebook, they can easily get it, and they're not seeing out of stock here, because that immediately makes them bounce. If they're wanting to get the ebook, they'll immediately bounce because it's like, oh, it's out of stock, I can't get it. Paperback, you've got it for $15. It's a signed copy. So that's something good to have in there for your pre-order. You got your refund, you got your shipping. So you've got everything in here that you need related to that.
It looks like Penelope said it's not available yet. It's pre-sale. I'm actually going to be offering the ebook as a bonus for signing up for the newsletter.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're going to sign that, if you're going to have that as a bonus, then I would remove that off of your shop as a potential sale item. And just have your signed copies up there. That way that they're not under the impression that the ebook is going to be available for sale, because the shop pages are typically based around the whole prospect and idea of it being something that is sellable, as opposed to something that's a free, something that you're providing for them for free as a means for them to sign up for the newsletter. You need to make that break between those two so that they know exactly what it is that they're getting into and exactly what they're buying or they're getting. The only other thing that I would say from a design perspective is that if you can, again, I'm not quite sure about Squarespace and Wix because it's been a while since I've done it, but you should be able to change the background color. So I would definitely change the background color on here to where you're not blinding people with this bright white. That you would change it to match the color scheme of your the rest of your website. And the reason why is that you want to make it a seamless transition for them, that if they're going to your shop, that it looks like it belongs on your website and not some off the wall shopping site off kilter. So you want to make sure that you adjust your backgrounds to match up. And that's, if you can do that, that's fantastic. If not, again, I don't know how their shopping carts and their shop pages work, but if you can't change it, I would really question whether or not to continue to use that, because you really want to have the website be consistent from a design perspective, from a color perspective, from a font perspective, to have that consistency across the board to where it looks like it's a seamless transition and it's a seamless website. Shop app is frustrating. I completely agree. I completely agree. Yeah, the shopping apps are not fun, but they are necessary if you are going to go through the process of doing that. There are ways around it. You can build out custom shop pages that are not part of the shopping cart process. But again, it takes a little bit different of a process that you need to do in order to accept those orders. There's ways that you can do it, like you can collect payments directly through Stripe or PayPal off of a button on your website. If you want
that's what I do.
Yeah.
I like try to build a thing around as compared to signing up for the shopping thing. That's only because I have such a bare basic need for it at this point in time.
Yeah. So it's one of those where you kind of make that evaluation and you figure out and decide whether or not the effort that you need to put in order to make the changes equal what you think that you're going to gain in value out of making those changes. So if you got 1,000 people a day that's visiting your website, you definitely want to make sure that you're making those changes. If you're getting one person visiting your website every 6 months, the changes are going to be small and you're not going to really necessarily need to ensure that kind of a seamless experience for them at this point. But you always want to look long term. So even if you have your web pages set up like they are right now, you want to make sure that you're thinking, okay, so a year from now, I should have X number of books published. My marketing plan is doing X, Y, and Z. So my goal is to have X number of fans in my community. And so thinking long term from that perspective and setting forth a plan for that, you can also incorporate in your website design and setup appropriately with that. So you let your website grow with you as you grow as an author. So, you know, the more popular you become, the more your website becomes important. Unless you're Stephen King. If you're Stephen King and you've been around in the business for long enough, his website's very basic. It doesn't look very good, but he's Stephen King, so people don't really care. They're there for the books. They're not there for the website. But if you are an indie author and you're trying to start out, you want to, you know, put that best foot forward. So you want to make sure that you are allowing for them to be able to see that professionalism that you've put forth. Because if you're spending so much time and energy and effort into ensuring that your book is written appropriately, it's got the right punctuation, it's got the right grammar, it's got, you know, all the right elements in the storyline. If you're going through all of that problems and you're going through every bit of that process of ensuring that all of that is perfect, them going to your website and it being a jumbled mess, well, it's a disappointment, because then they're like, well, okay, well, this is you. This is the portal that I have at this point to see who you are as a professional. Because even an indie author, you're a brand, you're a business, and you're a professional. So
yeah, it's funny. Penelope is like, if you're at Stephen King's website, you're there for the FAQ. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can tell the authors that are very, very famous, their websites are not as done up as others would be. But then you have some that are, like if you go to R.A. Salvatore's website, you'll see his website is really, really set up nice, and it's done. So it just depends upon the author. But like with Stephen King, he never really cared about it. But he's been around for so long. He was writing books back when I was first building web pages. So it's been a hot minute, and he doesn't necessarily need to have that marketing tool. And that's what your website is a marketing tool. He doesn't necessarily
has
need
brand
that.
recognition.
Yes. Yeah. People know who Stephen King is. Like Brandon Sanderson, he can have like a single page that says, "Hey, I'm Brandon Sanderson," and people will still go to his webpage and still click on links to buy stuff from him because he's Brandon Sanderson. But unfortunately, none of us are Brandon Sanderson or Stephen King, so we've got to make sure that we, as indie authors, have the best marketing tools that we can have at our disposal, and making sure that your website is set up appropriately and looks right and has the best user experience and the user interfaces really goes a long way to ensure that that's the case.
Awesome. So, James, would you say that about wraps up Penelope's website?
Yep. Yeah, that wraps up Penelope's website. I think I've ripped it apart enough, Penelope. So there you go.
I'm definitely going to... it sounds like Penelope is going to fix up the page, make it easier to navigate, and fix all the dead links. Thank you so much for all your recommendations.
Not a problem at all. Anytime. I'm looking forward to you reading my story, by the way, Penelope. So, hey.
Ooh. And for those of you who don't know, James wrote literally the first story, one of the first stories about me as the protagonist, which was so cool. Like, we read it on the Monday stream, and James, once again, I'm just so honored by it. And then as the ending of it, James, we got feedback from everyone who was in the live stream. And then James wrote two different versions, one version for me and then one version with Penelope. So it's super cool. We're going to actually be reading that on the live stream sometime within the next couple streams. So we'll be reading it soon. And James,
sometimes within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Stay tuned.
What was that?
Sometime within 4 to 6 weeks. Just stay tuned.
Sometime this year,
Yeah. Just keep tuning in. You'll hear it eventually.
And that's why you have to subscribe every day, just for this,
exactly.
just for the story.
Turn on that notification bell. You got to make sure that you're here all the time.
Awesome. And then before we get into the next one, so just so you guys know, we're going to be hopping into Soul, your website, next. We're going to be hopping into Soul's website. Soul, I know I saw you here earlier in the stream. Just say hi if you're here with us. So before we do that, we were literally just diving into Penelope's website, and this is literally the perfect time to do a call out for our Freaky Friday Flash Fiction competition, hosted by our very, very own Miss Jezebel. Ms. Jezebel with our Freaky Friday Flash Fiction competition. Do you like Flash fiction? Then this is the competition for you. So you have about 2.5 weeks to submit. Finalists are going to win a story in a published Flash fiction anthology, one-on-one critiques, and a live reading by a professional author. The top 4 winners who are selected by the live community will also win a $20 Barnes & Noble gift card. So the competition itself will be at the end of October, but definitely go submit. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. And let's see, I want to make sure I give you guys the right link. I believe this should be to the Flash Fiction submission link. If you haven't submitted your story yet, we still got about 2.5 weeks. So definitely, we want to see stories from all you, my friends. All right. And then we got that. So then without further ado, James, let's hop right into Soul's website. I see Soul here in the chat.
Yep, I saw Soul as well, so that's great.
All right, perfect.
All right, so we start off with Soul's website. So,
and then, so what is the what's the name of the website, so we can,
if anyone wants it, solarwolf.wixsite.com/McNamara-works.
Cool. I'll drop it in the chat in just a second.
Yeah, it's kind of a long one.
Awesome. All right, James, do your thing.
All right, so first off, we know it's Wix because, well, there's this big banner at the top that says, hey, Wix website builder, start now. So I know that Soul's using the free version of Wix because Wix likes to brand their stuff to ensure that if you're on the free version, you're there. Soul McNamara, that's fine. I've seen many authors use just their name in terms of in the header to identify the website, which is great as long as it's got the name for the particular author or person, we're good to go. You've got a hyperlink to music. The only problem with these that you're going to run into is the fact that there's no volume control on this. So if you click the play, it's going to play at full volume. So I wouldn't keep that on there unless it's an actual music player that has volume control. People will click on that and that sound, it blares like as soon as it turns on, it's loud. And then you got a login button at the top. Are you asking them to log in? So we start talking in terms of from a perspective of the user calls to actions. Login is a call to action. Are you asking them to log in to the website?
It looks like it's a login to Google. It looks like you log into your Google account.
Yeah. So with that being the case, if you can remove that, and again, on the free side for Wix, I don't know how much you can make changes. But if you can remove the login button, if they're not supposed to be logging into your website, I'd remove that. You've got more over here. It's a full drop down. I usually prefer having the navigation menus, especially with things that are important, such as published works, game projects, stuff like that, be on the actual navigation head. So instead of having this music here and the login button, I would have all of these across the top here as a navigation menu to where they're not having to find the extra stuff here. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you're thinking through the design of the website. You've got, Soul McNamara about who you are, storyteller, world creator, adventure writer, fictionist who can create detailed and adventure-filled stories with ease. And then you've got an about me. And then it takes you into the about section. And we're going to go there here shortly. And then you've got sort of your resume. So what this tells me is this tells me that you're focused in terms of your website's theme or focus, for better term, is about you and your experience. So you've got your resume there showing what what you've done in terms of education, things like that. It doesn't go anywhere in terms of navigation wise. So there's just this one specific thing here. So I don't know if you're necessarily planning on adding additional things here to where they can scroll across, but typically when they see these scroll buttons, people are going to want to click on it and it's not going to go anywhere. So just something to kind of think about, that if this is it, if this is the extent of what you're talking about in terms of the experience that you've got, I would not make it a scrollable block. I would make it just a standard block and put that in there with headers and text fields. And then you've got images around there for inspiration and the various cats. You got you're a gamer, want to collaborate, need a writer for a project, contact me. You got to contact me. And then you got your my latest projects, and then you got buttons here for my LinkedIn, Facebook, and Discord. So navigation wise, you've got navigation kind of spread out. These are kind of calls to action, but when you think in terms of a page as a whole, you've got way too many calls to action on the web page, because if I'm here, I don't know where you want me to go. So there's about me. If I go back further down here, contact me, my LinkedIn, Facebook, Discord, having those as big buttons, the bigger the button, the more it draws the eye. And so a person that's on your website is going to immediately go in and be like, okay, so I can go to LinkedIn, I can go to Facebook, I can go to Discord, I can do a contact me, but the contact me is extremely small here compared to
almost miss the latest projects button here because it's almost like it's hidden.
Yeah. And so this blends in a lot more with the background. And stylistically, if you're going to have a button on top, you want to make sure that it's a pronounced button. But again, you've got a button right above a button. You've got a hyperlink above a button. So you've got way too much in such a small area. So I would space that out a little bit more, or make sure that the information down here at the bottom is condensed a little bit more to where it looks a little bit better. So instead of having the big button for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Discord, having a social icon bar that has the LinkedIn logo, the Facebook logo, and the Discord logo that has the hyperlinks down at the bottom in the footer would work a whole lot better. So we've got that. So that's your home page. And then you've got your about page, which gives the about who you are. You can download the resume. So again, it's based upon you as a professional. And so if you were going through the perspective of that, I want this to be my resume, you've got to make sure that you look at the website itself and the layout of the website as your first resume before they ever get to download your resume. Because especially if you are in IT or you do game design, things like that, people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, oh, okay. So if they do game design, why are they not better at doing UI design? Because part of game design is UI UX, just like web design is. Okay, why is that not? Why is the UI so spread out or so compact or whatever the case may be? So you want to make sure that you have your website as your initial resume that draws them in to make them want to download your resume to find out about your work experience. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you're going through that process. You've got your latest projects here, which is good. So it's kind of similar to a portfolio that, hey, here's me. Here's some of the projects that I've worked on. You give a little bit of information. You've got down here in the bottom, you've got the social icons. These should also be on your main page. So I would definitely look at trying to get this block here with social icons and the contact me here, get that on the main page and get rid of those big buttons. make it a little bit more professional looking. And then we got published works. So these are the publications that you've got. So you've got it laid out. I like that you've got things broken up in terms of where the images are. So you've got the image on the left in the first one, image on the right in the second one. So it breaks up the web page a little bit better, which is always a good thing because you want to try and create those interrupts. It's kind of like when you're doing YouTube videos. You try and do those quick cuts to where they're actual visual interrupts. And so the same thing on the web pages, that you want to make sure that you have interrupts too. And so having these alternate is really good. And then you've got here at the bottom, click on the image to find out how to purchase or where to push the ebook, which is great, or click on the image to visit the website. So you're directing them over to click on the image itself, which is fine. Most times with the way people have gotten used to using cell phones, when you're talking cell phones, everything should be clickable. So images should be clickable and should take you somewhere, even if it's a blown up of the image itself. It should be able to take you somewhere. So they're kind of used to clicking on those as a part of being on the cell phone world. So when they get onto an actual full web page, they're still going to do the same thing. So for me, when I go to web pages, I immediately look at some of these, especially book covers. I expect these to be hyperlinks going somewhere. And so you've got those books there. Again, it's set up, trying to make sure that things are consistent across everything. So font wise, make sure that you're using consistent fonts across the board. So your title fonts should all match across. Your subtitle fonts should match across. And also your basic text here should all match. And I would go maximum of 2 fonts, 1 title font, 1 body font. And then in terms of colors, if you're wanting to do colors from a design perspective, 3 colors max, and make sure that they are cooperative colors and they're not contrasting colors. Unless
like
you're trying to go for that
color
one.
wheel, right?
Huh? Yes. Yeah.
Like
just do a quick search for color wheel.
Check color theory.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you can get that, and there's a bunch of different ones. You've got you've got complementary, you've got contrast, you've got quadrilateral. There's like 4 or 5 other ones that kind of give you select what your primary color is, and it gives you the other colors that match it best. And so that you're making sure that visually when they're on your website, that the colors match together and they flow nicely, that your text and your fonts are consistent across, that there's nothing that really jars them in terms of their experience. So your next one is your novel, book, short story projects. So you've got your project thing here. So you've got your pages under construction. You said it's book 2 of 3. So when they go here to book 2 of 3, which is a hyperlink, because people are going to come in here and they're going to look around and they're going to try and click, right? So if you go to book 2 of 3 here, this right here is mailing info@mysite.com. And I don't think your domain is mysite.com. So this hyperlink is going to take them in. It's actually going to launch their version of email. So whether that would be their Outlook or what have you. So this will automate, because it is a mail to. So as in what we've said previously with the other websites, go in and check every one of your hyperlinks and ensure that the hyperlinks are pointing to the appropriate spot, or that they're not pointing anywhere. So as far as like the address behind there, there's usually like a URL address. If you don't want it to go anywhere, just put a hashtag sign in there, which is shift 3. So just do shift 3, put a hashtag sign in the URL. And what it does is it maintains the hyperlink, but when you click on it, it doesn't go anywhere. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. But you scroll down, you've got all the different ones here. Your categories or your tags are here. They're not clickable, but The novel part is, but that one also goes to the mail from my site. So all the way down, what you're finding is that you're seeing hyperlinks that they would click on would take them to send an email to a non-existent email address. Game projects, because you do game project design. So you've got your game projects here, 3D projects below are, so you got the claw colonies, text-based projects, Stone Age survival, made with Twine, intends to be a Unity game. So you've got information here. You've got some hyperlinks that takes them to some forums. This one takes to the Stone Age survival page specific to that. So I would make sure that, again, check the hyperlinks, make sure that they actually link over to where you want them to go and they don't inadvertently go to some other place that you don't necessarily want somebody going to. Your other works page, so you've got your stuff with the other works. So this links over to a specific script that you've written for class. You kept it simple. You give a little bit of information about it. That's great. When you're doing separate pages like this, having just a single example may not necessarily work out to your benefit comparative to multiples. So if you've got a single script here that you wrote for class, if you go from there and you do another one, or you create a short story that you've converted into a script, whatever the case may be, add some additional ones in here. Have multiple projects. 2 to 3 is usually a good spot to be. You can have more, of course, but 2 to 3 is a good starting point. And then you got your business. So your press release that goes to your PDF for the press release. I'd be careful about that because hyperlinks that leak off to PDFs and stuff like that, people are becoming very, very paranoid nowadays to any hyperlinks that link off to things that are non-recognizable. So if you've got a press release, the press release needs to be named appropriately, especially if it's a PDF. The PDF name needs to be appropriate to that press release. Just so that they're not looking at this when they hover over in the bottom. What you'll see is the link pop up at the bottom to where it links to. And what I see at the bottom is a bunch of garbage .pdf. It's letters and characters with a bunch of underscores, and it's got .pdf. So for me, if I'm here and I don't know who you are, I'm not going to click on that link because I can't trust something that doesn't look legitimate. And then you got your story Bible, the Stone Age survival. So you've got your story Bible. Again, that's also another one that links to a PDF that doesn't have the appropriate naming convention. So if you're going to link outside, make sure that you've got appropriate naming convention for your PDFs so that you're not running into an issue where they think that possibly you're leading them to something, a virus or malware or something to that effect. So just kind of be careful, be very intentional about how you do these, especially external links, that they point to a Google or whatever the case may be, and that the actual files are appropriately named to where they're easily recognizable, that they actually match. So this would be like Stone Age Survival Story Bible.pdf would be what I would be looking for if I see that there's a hyperlink to a story Bible. But when I look here, I don't see that. I see, again, letters, numbers with underscores .pdf. So it doesn't really give me a whole lot of confidence that I want to click on that because I don't know Sol McNamara as a person. So I am not going to be able to, trust in that it's completely legitimate or it's taking me where I need to be. And then the last one is your contact page. So you're open to collaborating, which is fantastic. This information here for the open to collaboration and stuff, I wouldn't just hide it on the contact page if you're intentional about wanting to do that. So if you want to collaborate with people and stuff, make sure that stuff like this open to collaboration is everywhere. So it's a part of your about page. It's a part of your home page. And then it's on your contact page. That way they have every opportunity that as they're going through your website, that if they are sparked and have an interest in working with you and collaborating with you on things like novels, video games, text-based games, D&D campaigns, that they'll reach out to you. So you're making it easier for them to be able to understand what it is that you're looking for in terms of collaborations, but it's also making it easier for them to be able to try and reach out to you in order to set up to possibly do that collaboration. And that is it for your site. You got a contact here page, which is, name, first name, last name, email. These vary from contact form to contact form, but typically you want the first name at least and the email address and then whatever the message is. So yeah, that's what we got. So are there any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, James, I know you definitely covered a lot, and I think it's awesome. So how much different elements there are to it. And I know just from like color scheming and a lot of the points you hit, James, how
Yep.
it seems like there has to be an awareness of not just color, but then the typography as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have necessarily thought of like, okay, only 2 fonts. I think there's a lot of learning, definitely a lot of learning experiences.
And there's one thing that I forgot on Penelope's website. And looking through Soul's website, I was like, oh, yeah. So Penelope's missing an about page.
That makes sense.
So, Penelope, if you're watching or listening, about pages are very, very important because from an SEO perspective, it sets up them being able to trust you as a person because you're putting yourself there. So having an about page that kind of gives a little bit of information about who you are and what you do is always good because 1, it works for Google, and 2, it works because people that go to your website who don't know you are not going to necessarily get to know who you are if you don't have information on there for them to learn more about who you are.
Awesome. Well, that was definitely really helpful. And let's see, for some reason, some of Soul's comments weren't popping up here from Facebook, but Soul was saying this site was updated less than an hour ago. So it sounds like I think there are a couple of images and a couple of the text-based elements, which were a little off.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure to call that out because I know that's very important.
Yeah. And that's great. Like, again, it's your pet, it's your child. So make sure you go in there and you're doing it because basically working on a website is kind of an iterative process. So you want to make sure that you're constantly iterating.
Yeah, I think that's very important because I see that you have it looks like you refreshed it, and it looks like we have a little bit of a different header up here.
Yep.
So thanks for the call out, Soul. For some reason, the Facebook comments are being a little glitchy right now. So I just hopped over.
Yeah, I didn't see. Yeah, I've not seen any Facebook comments except like
I think it's
like, yep, I'm here.
It's a StreamYard. Some of them aren't showing up, but all good. I got it going here. But thanks for the heads up, Soul.
All right, so we got a question.
Perfect. And it looks like from our favorite Rachel, making the about page in third person still valuable?
It is. It really depends upon what you're trying to do. So when you're doing your about page, you're making it about who you are. If you do it first person, it makes it more personal. So you're saying me, I. So that kind of they become more relatable to you in terms of like as if they're having a conversation with you. Because everybody knows one of the worst conversations to have with a person is somebody that's speaking about themselves in third person. Because James does not like to speak in third person about James unless James is needing to speak in third person about James. Isn't that right, Jared?
Kaufman only speaks about others and
exactly. So yeah, so it is still valuable. It's just depending upon how you want to set up your website. So typically what you'll have is like for those who are more business oriented, it's more third person. So they set things up and they talk about the experience of the person and things like that, but you don't really make it as personal because you're trying to portray yourself in a business perspective. Whereas when you're going in, if you're a personality or content creator or you're an
Mhm.
author, things like that, you oftentimes want to be more first person oriented so that they feel like they're having that conversation, that two-way conversation with you, even though they're reading off of a word page, of a web page.
Mhm.
It still invokes in their mind that it's a first person, that they're actually talking directly to you. And you're saying, hey, yeah, I'm this way and this is how I do things. And I appreciate you for being here, kind of thing. So it makes
I've
it a little.
definitely speaking as from like the content creator side of it, and doing a lot of research actually on bios and what was the right perspective. I've seen a mix from content creators,
Yep.
and especially in bios from both some authors and other authors. In terms of first person, I'm speaking to you. Third person, I'm speaking about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go back and forth. Originally, I did my own as a first, and then I changed to third. And I think my thinking was like, okay, if I'm coming as a reader and I want to, and it's this more from like a structural reading experience.
Yeah.
If I'm reading I am statements, I am, hi, my name's Jared Kaufman. I am so on and so forth, as compared to Jared Kaufman does this, this, and this. It makes, I feel like from that perspective, it kind of makes it more like I'm reading about him as compared to the I am statements. And I think it's probably maybe a little subjective in terms
Yeah.
of what type of experience you want to create.
Yeah. And it's one of those where, like, as an author, if you are a fantasy author and your books are written in third person limited, doing your about me page in third person limited perspective matches what your genre and your writing style is. Because I've been on author websites where they write in first person all the time. Well,
Mm-hmm.
on their website, you go to their about page, it's all first person. So they
Mm-hmm.
maintain that specific structure depending upon how they write. Now, Rachel was
Interesting.
talking about
Yeah.
from
So
an SEO standpoint,
mm-hmm.
does it boost your pen name? Um, from an SEO perspective, the tense and the viewpoint that you write in doesn't make a whole lot of difference related to SEO. Google will still be able to extrapolate the pertinent information, whether or not you're writing it in first person or third person. It depends upon what your audience expectations are, is where your focus should be. So if your audience expects you to be writing a specific way, making sure that your website is written to match that will help with easing their journey through your website.
And I think this brings up a really good point, and this question on my mind with being searchable and making sure that your website actually shows up in searches and it's actually able to compete. Do you
Mhm.
have any suggestions, tips, or recommendations for SEO?
So from an SEO perspective, again, making sure that you utilize EEAT, which is expertise, experience,
Mm-hmm.
trustworthiness, and then your A is oh dang it, my brain goes authoritativeness.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining those within the website. Another thing that you want to do is that when you look at the tabs at the top, you'll actually see SE. So like if you look here at the top on the screen and you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at like mine or WTC Creatives, it
Mm-hmm.
says at the top in the tab Web Design Agency. Well, that is picked up by Google. And so when you do a search by Web Design Agency, it picks that up a lot better, because what you're doing is you're essentially putting keywords in
So
the
like this,
tabs
right?
at the top. No,
Mm-hmm.
so if you look up to the top, where the
Mm-hmm.
tab is on your browser, you'll see
Mm-hmm.
it says custom WordPress web design. Go up top
Up
where
here?
the tab is. Nope, higher there.
Yeah, this. Oh, I see
Yeah,
where
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
The what's it?
So
Something
so
company.
from an SEO perspective, if you
Mm-hmm.
set those appropriately, then it it tells Google exactly what that page is about. So for
Mm-hmm.
that, this is custom WordPress design, and you can actually see that it says custom WordPress web design, and you go from there.
Awesome.
And if you go to different pages on my website, it changes. That top piece there
Mhm.
changes up. So the homepage says web design agency. If you go to like the about page, it says we are a full
Awesome.
service design agency. So these are just ways that you can kind of hack the system a little bit.
Interesting. And then
Yeah.
how did you set this? How did you set this as the for it to come up like that? Is that just a matter of changing something in the settings?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
each platform is different on how
Mhm.
they change those. Like with WordPress, you can download specific plugins that are SEO
Mhm.
based plugins that allow you to go in and not only change that tab there, but also
Mhm.
change the description that pulls up on the Google search. And so you can
Interesting.
actually put keywords into those that make it a little bit easier for search wise. So if you are,
Interesting.
say,
Okay.
an arcane punk author, putting in the keyword arcane punk in your tab titles and putting them in your descriptions for search, things like that, makes
Mhm.
life a lot easier and quicker for them to be able to go in and find you in search. So, I did that with some of the authors that I've done, and they're ranking number 1 in Google right now when you search for arcane punk author.
Wow. And just by doing that little tweak.
Yep, doing those
Wow.
little tweaks like that
That's very
really
cool.
goes a long ways to try and basically what you're doing is you're using the additional data, the descriptions and
Mhm.
the tab titles as a
Mhm.
means to steer Google in the right direction of
Mhm.
what information's on there. Now, does it always stay that way? No, because Google's gotten kind of crazy. And so Google has a tendency that if your description, because they scrape your pages, and I
Mhm.
don't know if people know this or not, but they basically, their bots go in and they scrape through your pages. And so they scrape through every bit of the data on there and they get an idea of what the basis of your page is about. And so then they look and they use their algorithm, i.e., AI. And if you do not have a description for that specific web page, it generates one for you. And sometimes even if you do, it will rewrite it if it deems that your description doesn't match the web page itself.
Interesting.
So it's kind of interesting the way it does it,
Mhm.
but whatever you can do to kind of help give that little extra edge,
Mhm.
you try and take advantage of that.
Awesome. Well, that is very, very good to know. And I think that's just a good little tip for anyone thinking about SEO. I know myself, I'm going to definitely want to look into that on my website.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with that, James, I think we're at a good point.
Yeah.
We got to go over quite a number of websites today. Once again, I feel like I learned different strategies from each website design.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you again for your time today, for joining me.
Oh, not a problem at all.
Once
It's always
again,
fun to be able to hang out with you.
thank you. I know it's always really cool when I have like other writers and other community members, especially
Yeah.
like sometimes on like the writers group on Wednesdays, hop onto the
Yeah.
stream with me. So
Yeah.
I'm
I might have
like,
to see about getting onto the writers group with you
hey,
guys
you
at
come
some
join
point.
us next Wednesday. We're you with between me, Soul, Penelope, Crazy, Dana sometimes.
Uh-huh.
We're literally just talking at each other. Trying to
Yep.
write, maybe trying to write.
Do a little bit of writing here, a little editing there.
Awesome, James. And once again, for our live stream or replay audience, where can they find you?
So if you want to find me, the best place to find me is on my website. And the
Mm-hmm.
website is wtccreatives.com.
Mm-hmm. And it is linked in the YouTube description.
Yep.
All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to close out the show, but thanks again for joining me. And once again, we'll have to do another one of these again soon. And I'll make sure to link our last website review as well for anyone who
Yeah.
wants to go watch the next one. Who's
Yep.
like, all right, I need some more tips. We did one about in June, I think. So months back early summer. And that was the first website review stream we did. All right, beautiful. And with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today, my friends. It has been an absolutely great stream. And as we think about creative writing on the morrow, tomorrow is episode 29 of the Story and Critique Show. Do you need feedback on your story excerpt, on a book, novel, short story, script? you name it. If you're wanting feedback, we'll be doing a live reading and the live critique for tomorrow's show, everybody's favorite. And even if you're not submitting something, just showing up, the writers who always show up to our Saturday streams are so much fun. We get to talk about all the things that we're trying to work on and maybe giving some great feedback to help all the writers in our community. So if you want to go submit, I'll drop it right here down in the YouTube description. There's the form for the critique show itself. Will be quite a lot of fun. Now, usually we do it a little later in the afternoon. Tomorrow's critique show is going to be a little earlier than normal. So I'll be up at tomorrow's critique show it will be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be at a slightly earlier time tomorrow. It'll be fun. So submit now. And most importantly, if you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends. And that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.